Thank you. Aaron Scott.
I'm David Kamara.
We're the co-founders of the Good Brothers Foundation. First, just definitely want to say thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for caring about something like this and being willing to be part of a charity dinner so that we can help and support and do more work to reach the young men in our community. And you know, we realize it's not just about the boys and the men, but it's also the people that love them. Right? So we're looking out to a room of brothers and sisters right here, you know, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, and we know that family systems are impacted. We're going to share a little bit about some of the statistics, kind of speaking to what Cody opened up with. And we're going to share a little bit about our story, because to know the good brothers is to love the good brothers. And so we want to let you know about us, kind of where we come from, why we do what we do, and then want to share with you about what's going on with the organization. So you can have awareness about what's going on, and maybe there'll be some ways that we can work together, and we can continue to build. So yeah, right. 1 out of 3 young boys grow up in a home without a father. 90% of children that end up being runaways come from a fatherless home. 85% of young people that find themselves somehow system involved come from a fatherless home. 63% of young people that commit suicide come from a fatherless home.
Almost 78% of people who are incarcerated come from a fatherless home. Even the dropout, high school dropout rate, almost 60% of dropouts come from fatherless homes. There's an epidemic of a lack of fathers in the home. And unfortunately, as males, males, regardless of even the species or animals or humans, males always look to other males to pattern, to create examples of. And so what we believe is that if we can create examples for young men, if we can create them and show them and be who we want them to be, they'll be able to shadow, show, and become the men that we aspire them to be.
We believe that men do have roles as leaders, as protectors. You have a job to do that. And we believe that that is your destiny as a young man. When we say the Good Brothers Foundation, that word good's an acronym. Growing to overcome the obstacles of our destiny. We believe you have a destiny. And it's so powerful because, of course, we want to get this message to young men. Right? You know that it's easier to build strong children than repair broken men, like Frederick Douglass said. But also realize that we can connect with men too that maybe slipped through the cracks, maybe like we said, fell victim to some of those things, didn't have that support for whatever reason. We are a faith-based organization. We know sometimes the things that people deal with themselves is not because of the sins of somebody else or something that was going on, but it's just something that they have to face, they have to work through. Well, we're convinced that with a network, with some people that will speak life into you and encourage you, that will give you some skills, you can make a choice to grow, to overcome those obstacles, overcome the obstacles of your destiny. We'll share a little bit about kind of, our story. So I'm going to invite David to share first, and you'll hear our testimonies, and then we'll talk about what we call as like a rivalry that became a brotherhood. Okay?
Right. So just a little bit of myself. I was born in Nairobi in East Africa. I came to America when I was about 1 year old. I always said that it's maybe the hardest thing I ever had to deal with, like learning to be an African in America. Okay, probably a childhood, But at age 6 was the first time I figured out that I was born with HIV. Right? And if you guys know HIV in the 90s, that was basically a death sentence, okay? And so imagine a young man who his mother told him, like, you know what? I'm telling you something and you could never tell another person in your life that you have this. And if you do, they will ostracize you, they will shut you out, and no one will like you, right? And so imagine what is that going to do to a young man, right? What was powerful, though, is that, I had a God-fearing mother, praying mom, and who, she tells me to this day, like, at age 3, she was saying my first word was a scripture that said, I shall not die but live to proclaim the works of the Lord. Right? And that's like my life scripture. And the reason being is because sometimes you question why things happen in life. Why do those things maybe happen to you? And in many moments in my life, I've questioned those moments and chose wrong things because I didn't think it was fair, right? But what you realize that sometimes in life, sometimes God allows things to happen to you so that only through God, only God gets the victory when you can overcome that. And so today, I'm standing before you as a man who is like, foremost, I'm a husband, I'm a father of 5 boys, or soon to be 5. Right? And, but, I stand before you today like a miracle in person, because I'm disease-free today. And I tell people that, God is still doing miracles today, and I believe that if He saved me, He can save anyone. And I believe that the testimony of my life is about letting people know that it's actually the things that we endure and the adversity that goes through life that is what makes us who we are. And it's our ability to have that voice to tell others that, this is what I went through. Because sometimes the only hearing someone else that went through that is what's going to empower somebody else. And so through the Good Brothers, through my brother, through my wife, through this network of people, I've learned that it's about our ability to open our voice and use our voice to empower others. It's the way we're going to change our lives, touch people, and encounter the world. So it's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. See why I love this guy so much, So I grew up in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. My cheers. Yes, sir. Let's go Eagles. My father was an alcoholic, and my grandfather was an alcoholic. The story keeps going back like that. So I grew up in a house that was very tense, that was very cold, that was very much like walking on eggshells all the time, And the way I responded, I was rebellious. It's interesting as I learn more about myself and about people, you respond to these adverse situations in different ways. Well, I decided, you're not going to reject me, I'm going to reject you. I'm going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. And I got not so far going that route. As anybody else, maybe that's been kind of in that path. Walking around with a lot of anger, getting in trouble in school, getting in trouble with the law, partying, drinking, promiscuous, these kind of things. I start to kind of get on a better track. I'm thankful. My dad got clean when I was about 7 years old. Changed our life. Started to put us on a new trajectory. And he stayed clean and sober to this day. And he went through the AA programs and things like that, but he'll always tell you it was by God's grace that I made it through this thing. And he instilled that in me. So while it took me a while to kind of get past some of the hurt that I was dealing with and figure out new ways how to sort through things, by the time I get to college, I am doing better. I'm not partying, I'm not acting up like that, I'm finding a church for myself, I'm getting into my word and really starting to build my own relationship with the Lord. So it was 2009, and it was the summertime, my junior year. I get robbed and shot for my cell phone. Shot in the stomach, 24 years old. And in my head, I'm like, hey, it's been a good 24 years, right? You're figuring in the body, in the head, something like this, we're not going to make it out of there. But I heard a little voice, and I believe it was the Holy Spirit, and said, guess what? You can't stay here. So I get up, and I promise you, I thought I was doing Usain Bolt numbers, okay? Down to the grocery store, to the Chinese food store. I joke around like that because when I look back, I was hobbling down the street in a bad way. But a police officer heard the shot around the block, threw me in the back of his car, took me to an emergency care. Within an hour, I was at Temple University on the operating table. I'm there on the table for 20 plus hours. I had to stay in the hospital for a month. I wake up, I'm all intubated, tubes and everything like that. Don't let my parents tell you the story because of the way that I started ripping stuff out. And my mom's like, what the heck are you doing? But to David's point, we go through challenges, we face obstacles. If it's not the end of your story, it's part of your story. And we all have one of And something that's so beautiful is when we're willing to have the courage to share about what we've been through. We find out that we actually have so much more in common with the folks around us than we realize. Not only that, but when you start talking about your story in an empowering way, you're encouraging yourself. You're empowering yourself. And you're also motivating people around you. Because sometimes, like, I'll think my story's bad, and I'll hear a story, and I'm like, dang, mine wasn't, right? So crazy. Anybody's had that experience. But that's the power in sharing your story. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so that's what we're working to do, right? Having these lived experiences, but now using what we've been through to connect with others. I stand before you as a man in the ministry, as a business owner, as a nonprofit leader. I stand before you blessed as a husband, a father, 2 beautiful children, a little boy and a little girl. You know, as somebody that's able to connect and realize, yeah, you know, I got a story too, but we leave what, you know, my mom used to say, chew up the meat and spit out the bones, you know? So we're taking what was good and we're moving on with the rest and being able to work together. So I want to share with you a little bit about where we're coming from, because it's so important that we're going to stand up and maybe challenge some folks or maybe invite some folks or talk about some things that we let you know, like, we don't have it all together. We've been through some things ourselves. We're going to go ahead and share a little bit about the rivalry that became our brother.
So, you know, by the way, we both went